it well. Played it very, very, very well indeed.
No more slices for you.
Oh, look at that for judgment.
You'll learn.
Right, it's very, very early, 9:10 on Easter Monday. We've decided to bring forward the recording of the latest Sliced. It means no real time to gather thoughts after last night, which we'll come to. But first, happy Easter. Have you had a good one so far?
I have. Thank you very much, Ben. I had a lovely Easter. Nice long weekend. It's always good having a 4-day weekend, isn't it? I remember I work with mainly Americans. And when I explained to them that I was having Easter Monday off, they were literally like, what is Easter Monday? They literally hadn't heard of Easter Monday. It was like it was an unheard of holiday for them. So, it's always
Well, it
nice
is in the world of sports media, let me tell you. The grind never sleeps if you chose my job. I'm going to share with you one thing before we come to your order of play. I played golf on Friday.
How did you get on?
Well, it was very satisfying. So I'm not a very good golfer, and I played with a 3-handicapper, 10-handicapper who hits the ball 300 yards, a 12-handicapper who basically finds the middle of the club face a lot but can't putt. I'm a really good putter with the chipping yips, a good iron player, and an improving driver, but with a bad drive in me. So I was off 19. And we came to the penultimate hole. I got a yardage from one of my opponents. I mean, that's a mistake. He's told me it's 190 to the back, and it was uphill by 20 yards. Say, it felt like it was into a really strong wind to me. So I've hit my hybrid, and I've absolutely crushed it straight at the flag. But you couldn't really see the green. It was sort of on a plateau, and we got up there. I've never played this course before, and it's 10 yards through the back, out of bounds. So we were 1 up. I thought I'd hit the match-winning shot because I got a stroke on this hole, and I hadn't. We lost the hole, so we've come to a closing par 5 where nobody gets shots. And as I said, I'm playing with 3 really good golfers. The 12-handicapper was my partner, and I hit a really good 6-iron from behind a tree to 20 feet and won the match for us. So I'm still buzzing. 3 days later, I'm buzzing.
So I had a happy ending. See, I was expecting that. I thought it was just going to be a tale of woe, and
No, yeah. I know you're used to those from me, and I understand why you'd have assumed that was what was to come. But no, a tale of joy. It has me, and like all part-time golfers, and I just don't have time to play. I was better golfer when I was 13 because I played all the time. But I'm buzzing to get out there again. So when that will be, I'm not sure. But
that's a great feeling, isn't it? When you come off the golf course and you just can't wait to play again. That's just that's
it's
what
great until you get home and realise that your life will not really allow for you to play again in the near future. But it is 1 month until I go to France for a golf trip, so we're getting there.
Ooh, wonderful stuff. Well, I wanted to bring in something, Ben. This is a bit of a red herring here, but I wanted to ask, what was the most ridiculously speculative thing you've ever done, aside from obviously hitting a 6-iron from behind a tree to,
Can I say betting on golfers? I don't know. I don't think I'm a particularly speculative person otherwise. Maybe moving to Leeds for a very low-paid job once upon a time, but I don't have a great one here. I wish I had an answer. I wish I could say I'd, climbed up to Machu Picchu in bare feet or something. I don't know if that counts as speculative, but I've done nothing. I live on the straight and narrow. So go on, tell me, what's yours?
Well, so mine is, I wouldn't put myself as a particularly speculative person generally, but I did in my 20s. Maybe I had a sort of certain brazenness to me. I don't know, but looking back, so in the aftermath of Rory's career Grand Slam, a lot of these sort of old clips of him have been surfacing, right? So there's the one of obviously hitting the ball in the washing machine on Irish TV. There was one, I think it was his first Masters, and Gary Lineker was presenting it. All these sort of clips are surfacing, and one I saw last week, Sarah Sturck posted something. I don't know if you saw this, where she had done a feature on Rory McIlroy in her early days at Setanta Sports. Now, do you remember Setanta Sports? Right.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
They had the golf rights, certainly the PGA Tour rights, maybe all of golf rights for a couple of years, didn't they? Which was, I think, 2007 it started. And when I saw this clip, it reminded me that end of 2006, I just moved in with my now wife. I was sort of, getting settled. But I was in a bit of career-wise, I was in a bit of a kind of, I didn't really, same as I am now, really. I don't really know what I'm going to do in my life. But a job advert came up for the golf presenter on Setanta Sports, which I applied for with absolutely no qualifications, no suitable training, absolutely nothing. And I somehow, for some reason, thought, yeah, I'll send in an application for that. Obviously, I never heard back, and Sarah Sturt got the job, and then she went on to do Sky Sports presenting. But it just reminded me of that, and I thought it was hilarious looking back at my 25-year-old self.
Well, I absolutely love Sarah, so I'm sorry it hasn't worked out for you, but Sarah's one of the nicest people you could spend time talking to. But I love that you went for it. And, you'd have done a great job. I've no doubt you've done a great job. I'm sorry that things have gone so badly that 20 years later almost, here you are talking to me at 9:15 on Easter Monday, which Americans haven't even heard of. And we're going to have to use the setting on here that cuts out background noise because my son is definitely going to scream at some point. And Sarah's probably having breakfast with Anton de Beck. But never mind.
Before recording Putt for Struts? No, Strut for Putt? I can't remember their new podcast.
I'm afraid I don't know the name of the podcast, but it's going well. I spoke to Sarah a couple of weeks ago, and they're having a great time. And she confirmed, by the way, that Anton de Beck is just as nice as he seems. So I like Anton. I'm not a Strictly Come Dancing person. Yeah. But I've always liked Anton de Beck. He comes across very well, and he really can play golf. Far better golfer than me. So you've got the short end of everything.
So can he hit a 6-iron from behind a tree? We'll maybe one day we'll find out.
I suspect so, and I think he looked bloody good doing it. But we'll never. We may find out one day. Maybe we can have a sliced versus putt and strut.
Yes.
They could get us on a good. Never mind this crummy municipal we're after playing later in the year. They'll get us on somewhere good.
Yeah, they can get us on at sort of Fox Hills or one of those.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Anyway, right.
When I say crummy municipal, by the way, that's where I'm comfortable. I'm not for all the municipals out there. That's where I'm comfortable. So
absolutely,
didn't mean it offensively.
I mean, my sort of municipal is a sort of Bethpage Black sort of standard, but
really, has it got a sign?
Absolutely not. No. Right. Let's talk about last weekend's weekend's just gone. Events in golf, and we'll start as we always should with the DP World Tour, the Volvo China Open. Did you watch much of this, Ben?
I watched only the conclusion, and I'm going to say, looking at the 6 events we've got listed on our sort of sketchy plan of we actually somewhat plan what we're going to talk about. I think this has to be the best week of the year for finishes. Apart, obviously the Masters was way better. I'm not being stupid, but in terms of the tournaments we're going to discuss in brief here, every single one of them had a brilliant finish, and the China Open had that. And Ashun Wu, I think it became clear during the week that this was his home golf course. So a lot of people who
we missed that, didn't we?
Yeah, we did miss that. I wasn't even interested. Well, I did do a bit of digging, but I'm not crying over this one. No way. But Ashun Wu, look, when he's had a chance to win on the DP World Tour, he's so often taken it over a period of 10 years, and I'm afraid to say that if you and I thought Incy Mehmet was really good on the Sky Sports broadcast here, because we do need the broadcasters, the journalists, to apply a critical lens. And she said, look, Jordan Smith's a fine player, but if there's one thing that he's not got the hang of totally, it's taking these chances when they come. And he's won twice in 9 years on the tour. It's a good career. 8 years, I think it is. It's a good career by any measure, but there's no doubt this one was one that got away. I don't think he's blown that many chances, but this one, he stands on the 17th tee with driver in hand, his most comfortable club, and fans one into the cabbage. Just as you're thinking that club will win him the tournament. So I felt sorry for him, and I hope he can get his 3rd win soon.
Yeah, that was hard to watch, wasn't it? And I don't know, we need a good stat guy like a Justin Ray on the DP World Tour, because I'd love to know. I reckon that he must rank the highest in terms of number of times in contention on a Sunday without winning over the last sort of 3 years, let's say, because it's just feels like he's up there so often.
Yeah, he would be one of those who's up there so often. I'm going to do a bit of stats digging here. People don't mind a clicking of a mouse, do they, in the interest of facts? Yeah, he is. I suspect he's probably one of those who hasn't had a lot of 54-hole leads. I mean, there are echoes. I don't think it's a coincidence that we often end up on players of this sort of nature. And I'm talking about Jordan Smith, back in the day, Lee Westwood, although, of course, he won many tournaments, but Tommy Fleetwood as well, a higher profile example, where people who hit the hell out of the ball and they just are so relentlessly consistent, but getting over the line is hard. I'm just checking, actually, he's had a fair few 54-hole leads. So on the DP World Tour, he has had 7. He converted one of them. Two of them, he was tied for the lead for both his wins. So, yeah, you're right. He's had a lot of chances, hasn't he?
It says a lot, doesn't it? I think if you've had 54-hole leads and only converted once, and I think, what you say, makes a lot of sense. People who hit the hell out of the ball, like you say, often when you're winning tournaments, it comes down to making putts at crucial times, and that's where someone like a Jordan Smith is may struggle. That's the sort of the weakness, isn't it? So yeah, it was hard to watch, and really, it was kind of a classic DP World Tour Sunday in many ways, where you had several players had a bit of the lead at one point, didn't you? Obviously Haotong Li towards the beginning, Chikara. I started watching basically going into the back nine, and Chikara had a one-shot lead, and then he hit a drive into the cabbage, didn't he? And then bogeyed that par 5, and then after that, and the wheels just seemed to come off after that. After then, obviously, you had Smith had the lead, and Ashun Wu just sort of came up on the rails, didn't he? And he, did what he needed to do. And the funny thing with Ashun Wu, or at least for me, is I didn't realise how many times he'd won on the Europeans. Like, if we'd have done a highest bidder for 5-time DP World Tour winners, I would not have put Ashun Wu there. I probably would have put him down as 3. And I remember him winning this, for his sort of, for his maiden win, but I didn't remember that he'd had another 3 after that before yesterday.
Yeah, I think the one that I think David Howe or Anthony Wall might have said it on commentary, like you'd struggle to name the wins. I think the one, and I went and had a look. The one that I would have had a lot of guesses before getting to was the Lioness Open, the event in Austria. I have no memory of that. I do remember him winning the KLM. I remember him winning in Kenya. All of them when scoring is not really low, because he's one of those, like he's not a particularly good driver, but he hits good approach shots, and he's got a really, really good short game. I believe he was first in scrambling, maybe third in strokes getting around the green. Like he can get up and down from anywhere. His bunker shot on 17 was brilliant.
That was excellent.
And I mean, as well, we should say Haotong Li. I mean, he was a bit unlucky. I don't know if you saw his ball sort of bounced out of the cup on the first hole, and he ran up a bogey. But he eagled the 17th. His shot to 18 was so close to setting up another eagle chance, which would have been electric, wouldn't it? He's a great player to watch, isn't he, Haotong? And there's a sort of, we saw all three. You saw Ashun Wu, who's getting towards 40 now, or he might even be 40. You've got Haotong, who's sort of probably 10 years, 12 years younger. And then you've got Wen Yiding, who did actually hit the front and made a few late bogeys. And it sounds like, again, something you learn in listening to commentary, Haotong's really sort of holding his hand in his rookie season on the DP World Tour. So his turn's definitely not far away. And it's nice to see the next wave coming through.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on to PGA Tour. So obviously there's 2 events on the PGA Tour. I'm remembering that this time because obviously last week I forgot. But, the RBC Heritage, Justin Thomas beat Andrew Novak in a playoff. Do you see much of the finale of this one, Ben?
I did, yeah. I watched quite a lot of it, actually. We've been out and in the day, but came back and had it on in the background at first, and then managed to focus on it for the last couple of hours. Another engrossing Heritage, a tournament I really like. A shame for Andrew Novak, and I think he had a lot of local support. He went to college nearby, and he's been banging on the door all year, hasn't he? And he really didn't do a lot wrong. If you go back, really, Thomas is not lucky to win because he played beautifully and the pair of them were clear. But Novak probably will feel like he should have birdied the par 5. Did birdie 16, hit a really good shot into 17, hit a brilliant shot into 18 in regulation, and he's had 8 foot for the win and missed it. And I think you look at all the tournaments last week, the winners didn't have everything their own way. They didn't have full control over the outcome. They did what they did, and it so happened that no one could sort of usurp them.
Yeah, Novak he got lucky with a couple of tee shots, I would say.
That's true.
When you say he didn't do a lot wrong, I mean, he didn't really do a lot wrong. And when he made the best of a couple of decent breaks, and sometimes you need decent breaks, especially around that type of course where you can very easily rack up a double bogey out of nowhere. So he did get a couple of lucky breaks, but he was really impressive, and he's raised his game, hasn't he? To you look at Andrew Novak a year ago versus Andrew Novak now. I think he's up to something like 34 in the world after yesterday. He's definitely someone who's knocking on the door and someone to monitor in some of these, maybe even in the signature events like yesterday. He's definitely up at that level now, with someone who could win the right type of event. His short game is really, he doesn't really have any major flaws. I think is a good thing about Novak.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. There is he's such a rounded golfer, isn't he?
Yeah, Yes, yeah. And so let's move on to the Corrales Punta Cana Championship. Now, this was an interesting one because Joel Damon had the lead basically for the entire tournament and bogeyed the last three. I mean, it's obviously heartbreaking when you see how it happened. His 17th hole, he missed about a 2-foot putt, didn't he? And then drops out the lead on the last hole. Bogeys the last, and Garrick Higo wins by one from a bevy of players. So it was a heartbreaking one for Damon.
Yeah, he was 16 under at halfway, and 14 under has won this tournament. I can't believe 14 under has won in regulation, no playoff. And again, like Garrick Higo, I tweeted this last night. Like Garrick Higo is a 2-time PGA Tour winner. People, Garrick Higo's won twice. Tommy Fleetwood can't win. So and so, Cam Young can't win, and so on. Well, the first time he won, Chesson Hadley finished bogey, bogey, bogey. The second time he won, Joel Damon finished bogey, bogey, bogey. And although on the first time Garrick Higo had hit a lot of good shots, he was 2 over the last 5-6 holes yesterday. He just I basically spin the wheel and see who it lands on. Like none of them stood up and properly, hit all the shots they wanted to hit. I know Higo was really pleased. And look, it's a tough conditions, that back nine. There are some hard holes. He was really pleased with his second to 18. I think he had about 15 feet for birdie. Whereas Damon missed the green. So he did have a putt that would have got him to 15 under. And he's a great player. I mean, he's won twice on a promising player. He's still very young. He's won twice on the DP World Tour, twice on the PGA Tour now. I'm not knocking him. It's just things fell into his lap, And yeah, I was on Alejandro Tosti, and I was sort of texting with a friend. Like he was on 15 under. And I was like, well, if he can get to 17, I think he's got a chance, There's a really good chance. He would have won by 3.
Yeah, he
played the last 6 in 2 over as well. So
it was very windy, I have to say.
Yeah. I mean, what about Damon? We all love Joel Damon, right? He's very hard on himself, isn't he? And nothing. He's never going to make anything easy, I don't think.
Do you see his interview afterwards?
Yeah,
because he said he basically, I didn't deserve to win that tournament, which I think is fair play to him for sort of acknowledging that, and also for taking the interview, not to sort of dunk on Morikawa again, but
no dunk on Morikawa again.
But yeah, I think it's going to be a heartbreaking one for him. But at the same time, last year he only just got won his card back to earn his card back, and this year he's that runner-up finish will go a long way towards him not having that stress coming down the last few weeks of the year. And obviously he must have played some pretty good golf over the course of the week. I mean, his opening round, what did he shoot in the first round? It was pretty
62,
low,
I think 62. Yeah. And so it's interesting that sort of contrast between how he played and how the clutch putts he holed with his card on the line last year, which he would say, I'm sure, was more stressful. And yet he just hit some bad shots and some particularly bad putts with a win on the line here. And yeah, I don't know what that says about him. It's a different kind of stress, isn't it? I think there's maybe an element where he doesn't really believe he's good enough to win a lot of tournaments, but when he's at the bottom end, keeping his card, he probably believes, no, I'm too good to be worrying about keeping my card. I don't know if there's something in that. The other just note to say, both Justin Thomas and Garrick Higo were in week 2 with a different caddy on the bag. So
I didn't know that about Higo.
Yeah, just second week with a new caddy.
Right.
So now,
Again,
what do you think? Do you think
didn't
Justin Thomas keeps his caddy? Do you think he goes back to his injured caddy or not?
Well, that's an interesting point. I think he'd said previously, this is just a part-time thing while my caddy is injured, so it would feel harsh, wouldn't it, if he didn't go back to him after saying that? But yeah, I mean, obviously, that was before he won, a pretty significant tournament. So yeah, I don't know, but it is interesting, the sort of new caddy thing. I don't know whether we talked about this a week or 2 weeks ago, but is there sort of that new manager theory you have in football, where suddenly you get this sort of new lease of life, and I wonder if there is something in that, but yeah.
Yeah, I think a resetting of the mindset, and certainly some golfers who've been sulking and not enjoying it, to get a new caddy on the bag and just new conversations, and I couldn't catch all of it, but Thomas and his caddy walking down 18 in the playoff were talking about another renewal of the Heritage. They were talking about the time Cantlay and Spieth were in a playoff or something like that. And by the way, I thought there was a really good moment from Andrew Novak's caddy in regulation, who essentially, I believe, said, let's attack, because they had I think he referenced the gap back to third, and it was as if to say, well, look, this is going to be our best chance to win the tournament. Never mind a playoff is 50-50. Right here, right now, we control it. So let's go and make birdie. And they so nearly did.
Playing with house money.
Yeah, exactly. And just final thing on Thomas, that's Thomas and McIlroy have both just won, and they're probably the two players we most associate with Quail Hollow, which is a major venue coming up in 3 weeks. And that's why I wonder if Thomas might just stick with Joe Griner. You've just won. You've got a major coming up in 3 weeks. I think he might stick, but we'll find out.
Yeah, interesting. I may have taken some of the 28-1 on him to win the PGA Championship last night. I may have done.
Well, I'm pleased for you, and may I say I'm also relieved that obviously I put him up for the Masters. In the early stage of his career, I got JT right. I was on him at Quail Hollow in 2017 at 50s, on him at 40s when he won the WGC, on him at 20s for the Players. Money in the bank. But let me tell you, that money is running out because I have selected him a lot over the last 3 or 4 years, steadfast in my view that he'll win the Masters, completely wrong. And look, he wins the week after, but he wasn't for me last week.
Yes. On to the Hotel Planet Tour. It's interesting. So it's the Abu Dhabi Challenge, which was second week in a row in the UAE, and Renato Paratore won for the second week in a row. And it's interesting, I think, because this is someone last year. He could barely make a cut. He really had dropped off completely, and he's sort of dropped down a level, dropped down a grade, and now he's won twice. He's almost guaranteed to be back on the DP World Tour next year. And it's interesting how those sort of levels, you sometimes see that. I mean, who knows what happened in the last few weeks that suddenly he's rediscovered something. But
yeah, he's as well as being known for being a very, very fast player, and with great hands. Like he just really struggles with the driver. He hits it a long way, but he can miss as wide as just about anybody. Not quite Nick Dunlap bad, but not far off. And what's interesting to me is does that problem go away when you drop a level? Because in theory, it doesn't matter what level you're playing at. If you're hitting drives out of bounds into hazards or whatever, you can't win golf tournaments. He obviously hasn't done that over the last 2 weeks, or at least if he's done it, he might have done it once. But it does that sense of being a bit better than these players actually help you not hit the ball waywardly? That almost seems like that doesn't fit together. So it's possible, as you've alluded to, that this dropping grade has coincided with a rediscovery of his swing to some extent. But the two must be related in some way. And he's seen Manacero go right down to the Euro Pro and come back up, and he's going to be back on the DP World Tour next year, which is definitely where he belongs.
I always get, I don't know if it's just me who struggles with this, but I've always got him confused with Andrea Pavan. I think because obviously they're both Italians. They both hit drives off the planet. Well, yeah. I don't know if they seem like very similar types of players to me. But Pavan obviously, as it remains, is still on the DP World Tour.
Renato is one of those who's younger than we might think as well. It's worth saying, like he got his card at Q School, didn't he, at like 20? So I guess he's about 28, and it feels like he might be in his mid 30s. So yeah, he's one of the bit like Hao Tong to some extent, actually.
Yeah. Right, 2 more events just to quickly cover. So the Corn Ferry Tour, it was the Lacombe Suncoast Classic, and Neil Shipley, who seems like a very likeable young chap, doesn't he? Beat a guy that I actually had money on, disappointingly, Shung Taek Lee, in a playoff. I think it was a 5-hole playoff in the end. And it's one of these, I joked about it on Twitter, but just playing 18 over and over and over again. That's just, I can never quite get my head around that. But anyway, happy for Neil Shipley.
Especially at a lower level where it's not so much. I know they get decent crowds on the Corn Ferry Tour, but it's not like you've got to keep people around that amphitheatre of the 18th. Like, yeah, I agree with you, and thank goodness the Harbour Town playoff only lasted 1 hole, because I guess at some stage they go to 17, don't they? But 18 is a bad playoff hole there, and yeah, you were put through the mill a bit then. How were you following it? Were you just waiting for tweets?
Yeah, I was just, well, that's the frustrating thing. I thought that the Corn Ferry Tour, there was no like play-by-play tweets. There was nothing. Even on the Hotel Planet Tour a few weeks ago when Josh Berry was in the playoff, there was like, Josh Berry hits his tee shot 300 yards, his approach goes to 15 feet. There was nothing. There was literally nothing. It was just like after the first playoff hole was finished, it was like both players make a bogey back to the tee. the whole finishes again. Both players make par. Back to tee. I thought, okay, you need to do something. I mean, 2
They
years ago,
used to stream the final
yeah,
hole like last year or the
exactly.
year before. They
They
streamed
did.
it regardless, and that was great. I loved it when they did that.
Yeah,
There's
when
something
Ben,
about watching golf through someone's phone at the back of the 18th green and just trying to work out what's going on that
yeah,
was added to the
exactly.
drama.
Yeah, because when Ben An won it, 3 years ago, I can't remember now. When he won it, they streamed the last hole. I remember that because I was like, this is quite a big thing for me watching that. And the cover, obviously it wasn't brilliantly high quality coverage, but it didn't really matter. You're like, okay, this is something we don't normally see. At least we're getting to see this thing happen rather than just
Totally.
rely on someone posting on Twitter that both players have made a par. Anyway, I'll stop moaning. But anyway, well done to Shipley. The last event to mention, the LPGA, it was the JM Eagle LA Championship, and Ingrid Lindblad won in just her third start on the LPGA Tour. I mean, I think it's fair to say she had an extremely good amateur career, so I think people have been expecting good things of her, but for her to win so quickly is impressive.
Yeah, I think we're probably talking about the next European star, aren't we? And she'll be on the Solheim Cup team next year, all being well. It doesn't always go like that. I mean, Rose Zhang has not quite reached the heights expected. I mean, she's very high standard, but it's not been dominant. And we shouldn't rush to anoint players, I suppose, even though I've just done that. But yeah, she looks like I think she spent a year and a half almost at the top of the women's amateur rankings, and I liked the way she spoke afterwards. Very self-assured. I like the fact the LPGA tweeted, "This is the first of many winners' selfies." So even they seem to be handing out trophies to her already. So yeah, really, really bright future for her, and impressive to win again. She won by one, didn't she? Another tight finish. So a week of tight finishes.
Indeed, it was a great week of events, really. Right, onto in the news section. Now we're going to open up, Ben. I know you love a bit of trivia, and I've got a bit of trivia that I think you'll enjoy. So Rory McIlroy, this is a bit of news from last week. So Rory McIlroy updated his Twitter bio, his bio on Twitter, Instagram, all of them. So his previous bio had been, "I hit a little white ball around a field sometimes," which has been the case since he joined these social media platforms like 15 years ago or whatever. And he made the update, I think it was on Tuesday, to Grand Slam winner. I thought, that must be a very enjoyable update to make. But it did make. I decided to do a bit of digging and to look at some other players' bios, right? Because for most players, they're pretty boring, right? It'll be like PGA Tour player, sponsored by Titleist and whatever. That's not for 90% of players. That's all you get. But there's a few players who've got something a bit unique, and I'm going to give you. So there's 4 questions here. It's 4 parts. I'm going to give you a quote, and I'm going to give you multiple choice of 4 players for each one, and you have to tell me who match up the quote to the player. Okay.
This is what I'm talking about. Yeah, come on, let's do it.
You love this, right? So first one. This is 2012 PGA Tour Winners Edition. Okay. And this is the quote. This is the bio quote. "America, freedom." And your multiple choice is Scott Piercy,
I was going to say all 4 options Scott Piercy.
Tommy Gainey, Charlie Belgian, or Ted Potter Jr. So
Could be any of them.
The bio is America, freedom.
Yeah, I'm going to say Two Gloves because there's a man who would value freedom given his run-ins with the law.
I'm afraid it is actually Charlie Belgian.
Oh, well, there's a man who should value freedom because he nearly, died on the golf course, didn't he? So, yeah, I suppose, well done, Charlie Belgian. How dramatic it was when Charlie Belgian used to find his way to coverage. Whether he was going to win the golf tournament or cease
I'd like to
to
know.
be.
Yeah,
I hope he's
don't know
okay. I hope his health's fine. Sorry, carry on.
Right. Next one is a live edition. Okay.
Live edition.
So
my favorite type
the quote
of edition.
is, the bio says, "Why be a sheep when you can be the goat?" The goat is the emoji of a goat, by the way. And the 4 players are Patrick Reed, Brooks Koepka, Chase Koepka, or Ian Poulter.
If this is Chase Koepka, I don't know what to say. Brooks Koepka?
It is Chase Koepka.
Oh, get lost. Come off it.
Why be a sheep when you can be the goat? Right.
Okay. Surely he followed his brother to live. Anyway, yeah. Remarkable.
Right, Canadian Tour Players Edition. The bio reads, "Top 5 Mario Kart N64 players in the world."
I think I know this one. Go on.
Corey Connors, Taylor Pendrith, Adam Hadwin, Nick Taylor.
I think it's Nick Taylor.
You're right.
Yes.
Yes. Correct. Good. Well done. Lastly, Italian Tour Players Edition. Okay. The bio
Can I
reads.
just say well done for spending Easter this way, Sam? Well done.
Yeah, I thought you'd enjoy this. Right.
Very much.
So the last one reads: have fun hitting golf balls at times. Big AC Milan supporter, also like NBA. And your choices are Renato Paratore, Andrea Pavan, obviously, Francesco Molinari, or Matteo Manacero.
It's not Francesco. He doesn't support AC Milan.
Good knowledge.
I think Andrea Pavan.
It is, I'm afraid, Matteo Manacero.
Is it? Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
I think the clue was in have fun hitting golf balls at times.
At times, right? Well, all of them have had their highs and their lows. Yeah. Good, great game. That 1 out of 4. You know, I've shot level par. I think maybe one over.
I think it wasn't really about the score there. It was just to sort of, you know, to basically applaud people's creativity and their bias because it's a lost art.
Well, I think you'll know this one. There's a whole rabbit hole you can go down on PGA Tour profiles, and I think you've probably seen me joke about this one before. But whose bio says that if they weren't a golfer, they would be a singer because they have a very good voice?
Oh, that's KH Lee.
Of course it is. Well done. Well done. I love PGA Tour player bios. I really do.
There's some great ones in there.
It's one of my favourites.
I think one of my favourites is David Skins says like a full English is his favourite meal. That's something like that.
Why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be?
Right, on to a couple other bits of news. So Wesley Bryan has been suspended by the PGA Tour after playing Liv's the Duels Miami. The length of the suspension has not been confirmed by the PGA Tour because they never confirmed that. But I think it's probably going to be 1 year, which I think that's generally their punishment for the Liv thing. And there's a good quote I really enjoyed from Wesley Bryan here. He basically expressed no regrets for this. All right. And he said no regrets because it was one of the most powerful videos in YouTube golf.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
What do you say to that?
Well, piss off is what I want to say to that. I think I had more prepared on this, but I'm sort of looking at this roughly time-stamped schedule for the day, and we're at least 10 minutes behind already. How sad and how 2025 that the last week I swear I've seen the name Wesley Bryan more on my timeline than Rory McIlroy. It's a complete joke. People need to get a grip. I'm sorry. The facts are quite simple. A PGA Tour player played in a live-backed event under threat of suspension and he got suspended. I don't care. And also, why is he on the PGA Tour? It's about 7 years since he finished in the top 125 in FedEx Cup points. He should be extremely grateful for the fact that he still gets into PGA Tour events, and he's chosen to take action which put that at risk. And he's comfortable with it because he's made the best video ever. So that's fine, isn't it? We don't need to get, I can't believe we've spent the week after Rory McIlroy won the career Grand Slam talking about this shit. It doesn't matter. I'm sorry. And the other thing I'll just say on it, I had another thing to say. I can't remember. All that I've just said is true, right? That is demonstrably true. It is also true that the PGA Tour is a shambling operation sometimes. And to invite that Grant man, very handsome, but I have no idea who he is or what his credentials are, but apart from being popular on YouTube, to invite him to play in a PGA Tour event at around the same time you're suspending a member for being part of live stuff is really stupid. It is really stupid. It's not double standards because he's not a member and sponsor invites can go to anybody, but it's stupid because of the optics and because you feed people who are already critical of the way you do stuff. So the PGA Tour remains stupid very often in the way they make decisions, and their PR is so bad. Right, and they should be upfront, by the way, on suspensions. They should do a video, Jay Monahan, saying, look, Wesley was asked if he could play. We told him no. We told him if he wanted to play, it's a year suspension, which is in line with our other suspensions. All that stuff is true. They handled it badly, but Wesley Bryan decided to take a year suspension. He decided that, so that's his fault. I'm sick of hearing about him. I'm sorry. It's just rubbish.
Sorry for asking, man.
What do you think about it, Sam? I mean, what do you think? You will have a more considered opinion than me.
Well, I think, ultimately, he must have known that there was a risk of this happening, or if not, then he was very badly advised or naive. But for him to risk his PGA Tour career on it was a 250 grand purse, 250 grand for the winner. In terms of the money that they're playing for on the PGA Tour nowadays, that's not much really. And to sacrifice a year's worth of potential earnings, I'm not saying that he's likely to earn a huge amount, but it doesn't actually take that many good finishes to earn a similar amount on the PGA Tour. I know that it's not all about that for him. He's about creating content on YouTube. Fine. But
I wonder if Liv might have paid him a good wedge as well. Because Liv know what they're doing here, don't they? They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's just boring. It's just Rory McIlroy won the Grand Slam 8 days ago, for God's sake. Can we just save this for a few weeks? And on that as well, like the people who've spent this week trying to belittle or demean or cheapen it by analysing his celebration, by questioning why he's not playing in the Heritage and what a joke that is, by talking about how actually Phil Mickelson's career is better. It is so sad. Just take a day off, for God's sake. And when Mickelson won the PGA in 2021, I don't like Phil Mickelson. I never have. He has never been one of my favourite players. But I did not, and nor do anybody I know, anybody I follow, seek to cheapen that achievement. It was incredible. He won the PGA Championship at age 51. That's amazing. And we should just lose ourselves in the sport sometimes and not worry about the politics and the fact we don't like Rory McIlroy or whatever. What he just did was historic. And if you can't enjoy that, go and find another sport. Oh.
Well, I think it was Laurie Cantu who said, wasn't it, that it's become so tribal, hasn't it? And he's right. It has. For everyone wants to they pick their sides and you go after the opposition, which it shouldn't be like, should it? It's certainly not when things like
I'm guilty of it sometimes, Sam. Like if I can kick Liv, I will kick Liv. But when Bryson won the US Open, I didn't write a piece on the Monday about how he only won it because some of the people are saying, McIlroy bottled it, but he just happened to win or whatever. Clearly, he was overwhelmed over that back nine. It makes it so much more an achievement that he did it. But no one, after Bryson won the US Open, said, well, you only won it because Rory missed putts. He wouldn't have won it otherwise. People said, that shot on the 72nd hole, one of the best shots I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Let's just do that more. I mean, honestly.
Right, let's move on to the world of golf this week, Ben. Let's get off that. So,
it'll be a good week.
The DP World Tour is the Hainan Classic, which we will talk about more in due course with our fantasy picks, and you can give a bit more info on the course and things. The PGA Tour, it's a Zurich Classic, which I think is an event we both quite like, don't we, Ben? I think it's just something different, isn't it? We don't really see team events. It's kind of a bit light-hearted. It was nice last year, wasn't it, to see Rory and Shane win? I wanted to ask you, having looked through the teams, could you talk me through your favourites and maybe least favourite, Ben?
Well, I'll start with least favourite, obviously. That's Jonathan Bird and Chesson Hadley, which I think is like a Carolinas boys or something, isn't it?
Possibly.
Oh, no, it's not. Actually, I've got a worse one. Vince Whaley and Anders Albertson. Anders Albertson's medical extension category is listed as the Corn Ferry Tour medical extension. He's played 6 times this year, not one of them on the Corn Ferry Tour. I don't know how someone tweeted it, like, I can't remember who it was, so apologies for not crediting, but how is he still getting starts? But obviously Vince Whaley played well last week.
Good last week, yeah.
There are a few teams I like. I quite like the minor league golf tour team of Nico Echevarria and Max Grazerman. If you believe that the putter is key to winning the Zurich Classic, they're 2 of the top 5 putters on the PGA Tour and they're on the same team. So that's quite nice. And the other team I quite liked was JT Poston. Obviously, I like the Euro teams, but JT Poston and Keith Mitchell. JT's played with various other friends of his in that little Georgia cabal. I know he's not from Georgia. He's tried Keziah, Stephen Yeager, Chris Kirk.
He lives in Georgia.
He's trying Keith Mitchell now.
Yeah.
So that combination of someone who's won quite a few tournaments, someone who doesn't win often enough, power, precision, flusher, putter, it's quite intoxicating. Maybe he can keep Keith's spirits up for 4 days.
I think you can call it the Sea Island Mafia, I believe is what they call it.
Yes.
So he's obviously not from Georgia originally, but they all live there now. A lot of that lot. So, yeah.
How about you? Best team, worst team? Start with your best.
Well, I really like Jesper Svensson and Nicholas Norgard just because they both hit the absolute shit out of the ball. Don't they? It's just like they're just
They
whoever's
do.
playing against or with them is just going to be 50 yards behind them on the fairway on every single hole. But I mean, they're not. Maybe there's some other flaws in their game, but they but they do hit the ball a long way. So
And look, I think power is like an underrated thing in this tournament that you might need. If you look at all the surprise teams, Ryan Brame was close to winning here last year. Paul Barjon, like all the sort of really surprise teams. When you look at leaderboards, they've got like an X factor hitter, and those two have got two of them. So
exactly, you never know. They could do something. The other one I quite like is I like Damon and Higgs because they're likable chaps, aren't they?
they'll be on the beers this week, surely, after what happened to Damon.
I wouldn't. Yes, I wouldn't. I don't think I'd be having a bet on them because I think they'll be just enjoying it too much. But Alejandro Tosti and Joe Highsmith, I quite like because they seem diametrically completely opposed. I mean, Toasty is like one of the most sort of fiery players in the history of the PGA Tour. Joe Highsmith comes across as just so level-headed and sort of calm and sort of
nice,
mature beyond his years. I mean, it's just like how did that team come about? I would love to know.
I'd love to know as well, actually. And they could make a good team, actually. Toasty's playing really well, and he's got that X factor power, and Highsmith flushes it. Yeah, they'll miss a lot of short putts though, maybe. So
yeah, now my least favorite.
I love it.
This might be harsh, the least favourite, but Bud Cauley and Kevin Tway. So Bud Cauley has turned a bit of a corner lately, having come back from long-term injury, and he's playing really well. I don't know why he's teaming up with Kevin Tway, who is just for me become a bit of a sort of journeyman pro with not a lot going for him. That may be harsh. I don't like doing this, Ben. You were the one.
I know you don't. I know, but I think neither Bud nor Kevin will be listening. So. I think the unspoken truth is that we admire all of these people who have made successful careers in professional golf, right? Yes. But it doesn't mean we can't have a bit of fun at the expense of
absolutely.
Kevin Tway.
Yeah. The other events
because I haven't picked my fantasy team, but carry on.
Okay. Well, you better do that while I round up the other events that are happening this week. So the Corn Ferry Tour is the Veritex Bank Championship. I don't have a whole lot to say about that one, I must admit, Ben. And the LPGA is the Chevron Championship. And I think that pretty much covers it in terms of what's going on this week. But I will move on to our player tracker. It's been a busy couple of weeks because Angel Ayora finished 49th in China. Didn't do too well for my fantasy team, I must say, Ben. So maybe I picked him at not the best time. But at the 11th hour, he is heading to the Zurich Classic with Alejandro Del Rey. So that would be an interesting team there. Did you? What are your thoughts on their chances?
Well, we're talking about it's another really powerful European team, and one of a couple of teams made up of players, neither of whom have PGA Tour membership. So Laurie Cantor and Jordan Smith's the other one.
That's interesting.
So I don't really know the dynamics there, but what I think the interesting point here is that not for the first time this season, we're talking about players who are passing up a DP World Tour opportunity in China. They're already in China. They're flying from China to New Orleans on a dream that they have to win, otherwise they're not getting anything. I think if I were advising them, I'd be saying stay in China, focus on the big picture. But at the same time, you can't criticize anybody for aiming big. They all believe in themselves, and so they should.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I don't know. Did they not get anything there if they get top 5? There's no sort of you don't get the because I know normally if you finish in the top 5, you get sort of I don't know how it works, but
well, I remember Tommy Fleetwood being the great person that he is, invited Chris Paisley along to play in this years and years ago.
Yeah.
And they finished like 3rd, and it looks like actually they finished 4th, and then Chris Paisley played in the Wells Fargo the week after, so there must be a top 5 or top 10 carryover. So so
there might be. So there
it
is
could
something
change
to play
their careers,
for.
couldn't it?
It could. Yeah. I'll mention Elvis as well because after his 59, I put him on my fantasy team, and he was up there for a while, but he finished T15 in the end, so it was a good week for him. And he's playing again this week, but he's obviously playing some decent golf, so he's worth keeping an eye on. It's hard to know much about this week, Ben. I mean, I'll go on to our fantasy pick section. I mean, what are your thoughts on this course generally? Because we haven't seen it for over 10 years now in men's competition.
Yeah, so for people who are betting building fantasy teams, whatever, be really careful depending where you look, what database. There are so many Mission Hills courses. And there are two big Mission Hills sites in China. One is in Shenzhen and one is in Hainan. And this is in Hainan. And there's actually a course at Shenzhen called the World Cup course, right? And the last golf tournament to be held at this course we're actually on this week in Hainan was the 2011 World Cup. So don't search databases and look for the Mission Hills World Cup course, because that's the World Cup of 2009, designed by Jose Maria Olazabal. That's where Ian Poulter won a WGC. It's not this course. This course, in terms of meaningful form, you've got the World Cup in 2011, won by Kuchar and Woodland, and you've got the World Ladies Championship, which was played here 3 times in 4 years, around the middle of the last decade. If you go through, as I have, the press transcripts from the World Cup here, Matt Kuchar says, after looking at the course, I'm definitely excited to have Gary as a partner. It's a great fit for him. Woodland says it's long and there's room off the tee. McIlroy says similarities with Lake Malaran, wide fairways, relatively simple to hit the fairway. Manuel Villegas says there's no roll in the fairways. The course is playing long. And Miguel Angel Jimenez, who was partnering Alvaro Quiros, said it's a little bit too long for me, and went on to say, but I've got Alvaro, right? So it's a really long golf course. And there's one other thing I want to say is that on the island of Hainan, they play a Challenge Tour event. In 2023, it was played at a different course, and Ricardo Gouveia beat Joel Gerbach, straight hitters, right? Short drivers. Last year, it was played at Sanya Luhitu, and it was one of the most big hitter-friendly leaderboards you'll find on the Challenge Tour, along with the previous editions, 2019, 2018, Besseling, Heisler, Meronk, Forrest, Crocker, Arnaus, Van Rooyen, Tapio, Knapp, Ungles. So that could be a good form guide, the Challenge Tour event.
Okay.
I think long driving. The one caveat, they're really wide fairways, no rough, loads of lava rock. When you get wide fairways on big golf courses, sometimes the advantage of the bigger hitters is a bit negated by the fact that you will get guys hitting 90+% fairways who are a bit like Hughes Loughton or someone. And they can compete, but I think you will see a power heavy leaderboard, which we didn't really get last week in the end.
Okay. Good info, Ben. Well, we'll go on to our actual fantasy picks imminently, but before I say that, so we haven't, we're recording early, as Ben said, so we haven't had our top 3 in from the DP World Tour on our Asian Swing leaderboard. So again, as we did last week, we'll keep you posted on socials for that, for who is in those top 3 spots, because obviously this is the last week, and the winner after this week of that Asian Swing will be winning those tickets. Overall, I can tell you there has been a change of leader. So Garvin Howarth has taken the top spot off Lewis
But you're
Blaine.
going to say Grant Horvath then? I was worried. I might have made that joke before.
You've already done that joke, Ben.
Sorry. Damn it. Need new material.
It's very tight at the top between the two of them. They've got a little bit of separation to 3rd place, but at the moment, Garvin Howarth is at the top. And Ben, do you want to take us through your 6 picks?
Yes, the team that I constructed over a period of hours rather than seconds is as follows. Jokes aside, I've done all my research for this event, and if people are trying to think, people will try and second guess selections. I've just picked these 6 players out of almost nowhere, but some of them are on my shortlist, which was compiled over the weekend. Okay, my captain is Rasmus Nygaard Peterson. He's just, you said it last week, he looks like he's going to win soon, doesn't he? He's probably the best player on the DP World Tour at the moment, to be honest. Eugenio Shikara, I might change him if I may, Sam. It doesn't matter. I'm about 100th. I just remember now that he had a bit of a thumb injury the weekend, so I'm probably going to kick him out. So he'll win. Brandon Stone. He's got a good record in China, bombs it, hit it really well last week. Ivan Cantero, it's quite interesting, I think. Should get a big price this week. He shot a good second round last week. I tipped him in Singapore and he finished like 40th, but his tee to green numbers were great. Marco Penge, bad short game week last week. He's usually a really good putter. And finally, Nicholas Lemke. I think he's really interesting. He's got the form at that course that I said on the Challenge Tour could be a decent guide. Well, he's played there a couple of times, contended both times. And he's at 40 years old. He's 41 on Thursday or Wednesday. Doesn't matter. He's playing some of the best golf of his life, actually.
Okay. Well, my team looks as follows. So I've put Hao Tong Lee as my captain, just because I think he's going to be chomping at the bit after last week, coming up shy. And he's just one of these players I just think he's worth playing in China. I mean, I'll say this, having not played him last week, but he seems like something you should just play when they're in China, along with Wen Yiding as well. The other player, so I I actually didn't know about that thumb injury for Chikara, so I put him in my team, and I'm gonna use the old "beware the injured golfer" mantra for that. So he remains there. Marco Penge, I've joined you on. He hits the ball a long way. Should suit him, shouldn't it? Brandon Robinson Thompson, really like him, and again he hits the ball a long way. I think he's going to win this year, and I don't know where it's going to be, but I just kind of want to keep him on side. I want to burn all of my usages of him. I think this is my third time playing him, but I like him. And lastly, a bit of a curveball. So Min-Kyu Kim, I think he was up there at Qatar, wasn't he? He's 15th, I think, last week. He's one of these players who I think we don't know a lot about, but he's obviously a good young Korean player. So yeah,
he's probably my worst ever betting tale of woe. Actually, when he won on the Challenge Tour, age like 12 or something, 17, I think he was. I tried to have a decent bet on him and was knocked back to a very, very, very small amount, and it was really late. I think it was late on the Wednesday. I'm sure he won in the Czech Republic, and I was offended by the amount I was offered, so I didn't even have that. And I think he won in a tight finish, and it's just one of you watching the leaderboard, seeing there's 150 golfers in this tournament. Please don't be the one who wins, and he did. Yeah, it was tough.
How much were you offered out of interest? But I'm intrigued. You don't have to name and shame the bookie.
I'm not. There'll be people who listen to this for whom £1.30 is a big bet, and I'm not in any way cheapening that. That's everyone bets to what they can afford, I hope, and whatever you bet, it doesn't matter more to me if it was going to be more than that than it would someone who's had 50p on. It's all relative, isn't it? But I was offered like £1 something, so I still could have won a nice meal out, but I instead did not enjoy my meal that Sunday.
It's cruel. It's a cruel game. It's a cruel game, Ben.
It's the cruelest game. Yeah.
Right. Highest bidder.
Really.
There are a few crueler games than the highest bidder when you're me. So we've got a few in. So actually, I will put out an appeal now for more highest bidders because we are starting to run out. So if you've got any good topics, and I encourage you to be be creative. We haven't had any, for example, on caddies or there's a lot of angles you could take for this, but anyway, we've got a few in from a while back, and this is from A. Smith. I think we've done one from A. Smith before. This is a new one from A. Smith, and it titled "Vive la France." Since the 1st of January 2015 until the present day, there have been 12 French players who have won on the DP World Tour. How many can you name? 12 French players.
Don't look at the camera.
I'm not looking. I got 6 here. Oh, what you got there? Is that?
I've gone for 10.
10? Okay. Oh, wow, 10. Okay. Right.
I'm regretting that. Should have gone 7. So since 2015, is that right?
Since 2015, yeah.
Victor Dubuisson.
Yep.
Mathieu Pavon.
Yep.
Romain Longuesque.
Mm-hmm.
David Ravetto.
Yes, nice.
I'm struggling now, Sam. Good. No, that's fine, that one. Julien Guerrier.
Nice, yeah. Epic playoff.
Okay. 2014 or 15?
15.
I don't know what year Gregory Bordy won the Wales Open. It was about then, wasn't it? No, it's probably before then. I'm going to throw in Gregory Bordy because I can't not.
Okay, well, I'll quickly check because you do get a mulligan, of course. Oh no, his last one was 2013, I'm afraid. So you've used your mulligan.
Okay, well, while you're there, check Raphael Jacquelin for his Spanish Open epic playoff win in the Spanish Open. That was him, right?
Well, I was wondering about him. I probably would have put him myself.
Could be the game's up. Could be the game's up.
I'm afraid. Yeah, he was also 2013 Open de España was his last.
It was the epic playoff, right?
Was it? Yes, it was. Yeah.
So I got Ben. 1, 2. No, that's fine.
5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's pathetic. So you need one more to take the point.
Oh, yeah, of course. I'm still in this, aren't I?
What are you playing at? Come on, you should have been thinking about this from the start. I'm annoyed at that. Why did I say 10?
I'm going to put in. I'm going to put in Michael Lorenzo Vera.
Never won on the DP World Tour. So I can safely say it hasn't happened in the last decade.
I could have sworn he'd won one of those small events. Sorry, I do
No,
believe you, of
both
course.
Tour Grand Finals about the peak so far for MLV.
Oh, dearie me.
Antoine Rosner, what are we thinking?
Rosner.
Antoine Rosner. Jeez, man.
Oh, I must have been thinking about Lorenzo Vira's Grand Final on the Challenge Tour in 2007.
Of course you are. Right. So Antoine Rosner's won. I can't really think of the rest. Like we did, Rivetto hasn't. This new wave of French players.
No one really from the new wave, apart from Rivetto.
Oh, Julien Ken won the Italian Open, didn't he?
Was that in that time zone?
About 16, I would say. 2016.
What about chap that beat Rory at Crans? Jeff.
That was Jeff Lucan, wasn't it?
Jeff Lucan.
No, definitely not.
That would have been earlier.
Not.
But did he win another one though?
Oh no, Julien Ken was 2013.
Yeah,
well, we're going to have to do some
research,
and maybe our followers can have a go at completing the list of 12 without looking, because we've failed, and I made such a strong. I was really confident I would get those.
You did make a good start, Ben.
Yeah, by naming all the obvious ones.
I mean, at least the ones you named had actually won on the DP World Tour.
There is that. I think I only got 5 though. Anyway, we're about out of
please. Anyway, if you have any good topics, that was a good one. I enjoyed that actually.
Me too.
I didn't really enjoy it, but I enjoyed the notion of it. But yeah, please send in some topics. I will wrap up now because we're rapidly running out of time. Thank you very much for joining us. We will enjoy the Zurich Classic, and we'll be back next week for some more fun and games.